Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the show. It is so good to see you all. How are your family members in Nigeria doing? I'd like to start with Dr. Emmanuel Gye. I know you're here, but of course, you reach out to your family members once in a while in Nigeria. How are they doing?
Well, thanks, Joy, for asking, and thank you, viewers, for connecting with us. I was fortunate to be in Nigeria recently and experience things firsthand, and then being in touch. I came back in January, and honestly, my wife is currently in Nigeria, and she is lamenting the real situation that is going on. The fuel scarcity compounded with the scarcity of cash. Cash is now a commodity. We pay to buy cash. And even when you want to pay, you can't find it. And it is making life extremely tough for Nigerians. On the other side, Nigerians are resilient and they are walking through this. But I think we shouldn't take the resilience of our people for granted. You can only push people so far, but they're coping, but it's not easy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gye. Dr. Ebere?
Well, yeah, I think the story is the same everywhere. It's a global thing. I think like one of those hot-headed aspirants will say, bread does not cost cheaper anywhere. It is the same price in Nigeria everywhere. Gasoline, the same thing. So what affects one affects the other. I know there's a lot of hardship, you know. I know even me that I'm doing some little work they're helping me do. Even the contractors or the suppliers are not supplying goods again because they want cash. You know, those supplying concrete or whatever, even cement, they want cash because they want to feed their families. So that had to stop my work, but I know it will ease up very soon.
Thank you, Dr. Ebere. As Dr. Gye said, Nigerians are very resilient people.
Yeah.
But again, there's a point where you need to watch what's going on and not to take the electorate for granted. Dr. Bello, let's hear from you. How are your family members in Nigeria doing at this time?
Well, as we like to say in Nigeria, we thank God for everything. Because even in the hardest of times, our people are known to be extremely resilient, as my friend Emmanuel said. People are struggling, but at least they are alive. That's the reason for saying thank God. A very good friend of mine went home about 10 days ago from England to bury his dad. And we communicate daily. It is hard. Life is hard in Nigeria. Whether you're a primary school teacher, an artisan, a professor, it doesn't matter. Everybody is feeling the pinch. We pray that the next dispensation will be much better.
I was also in Nigeria in January for 2 weeks, and honestly, it was quite challenging. I go to Nigeria every year, except for the years when COVID-19 came on us. And going back this year, it was quite stressful. But as we all say, Nigerians are doing their best to get to the situation. Well, a lot of them are also looking forward to the general elections. And that leads me to the topic of elections in Nigeria in 2023. Now, by February 25th, we will be getting ready for the presidential elections, and that's just in a couple of days away. Nigerians are waiting eagerly for this election, especially the presidential one. Let's look at electoral volatility, the polarization of society and democracy, for instance. You know, these are elements manifesting in various democracies worldwide due to the approach of leadership and governance in many countries. And so this is not just about Nigeria. But however, Nigeria is our area of focus. So looking at the dynamics of Nigerian politics, I know some have been home recently and just got back talking about Nigerians in diaspora, but we also watch events as they unfold in Nigeria. Now, I'd like us to take a look at what's going on in Nigeria as we prepare for the presidential election. Do you expect anything different in terms of the voting pattern of the electorate come Saturday, February 25th?
Well, where do you start? Looking at things as someone who likes to think that they are objective and maybe scientific, I don't see how these elections can actually end well.
Why?
Just from all of the news that is coming out of Nigeria. In my hometown of Ibadan, there were riots. And you cannot rule it out if someone actually lost their life or not. Same in Edo State and in a few other places. You can feel the pulse of the society in terms of the stress that is going on there. The society has been too polarized along religious and ethnic lines in a way that is so disappointingly fearful and worrisome. I do not know how we got to this point in Nigeria.
Sorry, let me cut you short as a follow-up, because what you just mentioned are not new to us. We've had that over the years. Even in 2015, it was the same thing. And as some people will tell you, especially people who watch developments in Nigeria and politics in Nigeria, they say you never know with Nigeria. Just when you think they're dancing on the brink, they return back.
Yes, but for people like us, maybe it's because we live in this part of the world where things don't get to half of what we have in Nigeria in terms of the negativity. The stress level is so high, and maybe we have lost our own resilience, as we would like to say.
If I take a review of electoral process in the last few years, I would say optimistically, I am of the opinion that yes, this election will be better than former ones. Reason being that we used to struggle with voter apathy. But this time, with the entrance of certain people into the race, there is a lot of interest. There is a lot of excitement. I thank God for internet. We are able to watch things happening in Nigeria real time. So if you look at the kind of mammoth crowds that follow all the candidates at their rallies, you know that Nigerians are ready for elections. But my only fear is in recent times, there have been some threats here and there, which might suppress some voters, which might make them scared to go and vote. But outside that, I'm very optimistic that we're going to have a good election because the turnout will be great.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ebere. But talking about the mammoth crowd, another school of thought will tell you that they've seen that happen before. And some people have classified a certain group of people as internet voters, those who go on the net to talk about what they expect to see on the day of election and what will actually happen on the day of election. So some people will tell you that what you see on the net now is just like a flash in a pan until the day of the election, then you know. Has anything changed?
Yes, I think so, because the rate at which many more people went to register to get, or whether to get their PVC or to register for the PVC, it was unbelievable. That even while INEC is extending the date, many people were still struggling to go and register, even though a lot of them could not collect their PVC, either due to logistic problems or pre-planned actions to make some people not to collect their PVCs. But then I've not been there for some time. Actually, the last time I participated in an election, I think it was 1983. I participated in the first one, 79, then 83. So ever since that time, I have not. So have not witnessed rallies, campaigns, real life. So I don't know why this one should not be as what we're seeing on the screen.
All right, let's go to Dr. Gye. Dr. Gye, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's going to be business as usual or business unusual?
I go for business unusual. So first and foremost, humans are tribal, all right? And in the West, our tribe is you're conservative or liberal in Canada, right? In the US, you're Republican or you're
Democrat.
a Democrat. If you go to Nigeria, it goes into ethnic and regional sentiments, but humans are tribal. And so we find our tribe. Now, the interesting thing is this election. This is similar to June 12th when I was in Nigeria. This polity is energized. You have young people who have come of age, and many of them are tech savvy. Many of them can check what's happening globally and know that this is not wrong. And unfortunately, our political class takes the voters for granted, and they think it's business as usual. But meanwhile, this giant has been awakened. We all know the statistics of the 93 million voters that are registered. Over 70 million are below 50, between 18 and 50. This is a tech-savvy, highly organized, highly educated bunch of people. That's one. Two, the introduction of BVAS and electronic transmission tells people that my vote will count. It's not like before where there was apathy because people felt there's no point. The election is already decided. So the people who have the influence will do it. Now, there is actually a likelihood that my election will count. And to me, I look back to 2015 elections. I had friends in Nigeria who were there at the polling station. They'll snap the results and put it on social media. That was before the electronic transmission, right? And that was the energy then. Imagine the energy that's going to be there now. Yes, the polity is heated. I agree with you, Joy, that in Nigeria, it's not new. And in most developing countries, that's the story. The polity gets heated by the ruling class for their own interests. But what they're missing is you have the boss, who is the Nigerian citizenry. They've woken up. And that boss is a different boss. It's not the older generation that was willing to just flow with the traditional. NSAS showed us what our youths are capable of. And it's the same youths that are super engaged. So let's watch this election. The technological development has made the world into a global village. Something happens in Istanbul, the person in the village in Plateau State will know about it. Again, that's another thing that many people think. A lot of our politicians assume, or I don't know, many people assume that our average person doesn't follow, but they do. They're on WhatsApp, they're on social media, they catch on. So technology has definitely changed. And then the electorate, nature of the electorate has shifted. Nigeria is a very young country. And the things that the young people want is different from the things that we, the older generation, accepted. Because we accepted it, that's the point. It may want a different thing, but we accepted it. But these young people want something different, and they are demanding for it.
In addition to that, I think that there's a shift globally, even in Africa. If you look at the most recent elections in East Africa, for example, the youth decided the outcomes of those votes against the older generation who wanted particular candidates because it suited their interests. But the youth went completely against that because they are educated, they have more buy-in into the electoral process than when we were their age. So I think that definitely this is going to be a different kind of election. One other thing is the fact that as we approach the election, people can feel the impact of the quality of leadership that we have currently and what they were able to deliver versus the people's expectations. So I don't think that the huge majority that Emmanuel mentioned will be ready to take things for granted and say, oh, we're going to give them another chance. I think we're going to have a different kind of election this time around.
Yeah, I think added to that, when I mentioned the change in the population or whatever, you see that in this dispensation, we're talking about the youth. The youth are more interested now. Why? Because they realize that they've been used for a long time. The politicians use them and dump them. They use them and dump them, just make promises. So now they have risen. Another set of the segment of the population is women. Women have been made to realize that they too, they are important. They can be governor, they can be president after all. They want to participate and they are really going to vote. And the way it's going to happen, I remember listening to some of them at one protest they had. They were remembering those women riots of the 1920s, 30s, and stuff like that. So they are ready to support their candidate and to make sure that enough is enough. And when they say enough is enough, it is the real meaning.
I had a lengthy conversation with one of the elders in Nigeria yesterday, someone in his late 70s, and he brought out a salient aspect of this conversation that we're having now, which I would like to hear your thoughts about. He was talking about what he noticed with the younger generation now, that apart from the fact that they're ready to go to the polls, they have also taken up the job that he was expecting the National Orientation Agency to do, which is going around and talking to people in terms of advocacy. And he said to me that he noticed that that is going on a lot on social media. However, one thing young people have forgotten about is the fact that there's a critical mass in the villages who would be voting. And this same old politicians know that. So they are going to the grassroots to talk to them. But how many young people are going to talk to people at the grassroots?
A lot of them are unemployed. Remember that. I don't want to relapse statistics. But a lot of them are unemployed, so they're in the villages, they're in the inner cities. So they are the ones, some political parties that have seen their footages, that they're going house to house campaign. And this house to house, they do voter education, showing people how to thumbprint. At least I saw that in many places. So that is part of it. And again, like I said before, those of them who were always recruited to become thugs, a lot of them have got sense now, if I use that language. They have got sense, and they are helping to make sure that the right thing is done this time.
There's something again that assumption overlooks. We all know how there are undecided voters, and they are the ones that dictate elections. So a lot of those people in the villages and so on, they have access to social media. They're more aware. Everybody, majority of Nigerians use WhatsApp, Facebook. So they're there. So the assumption that they are villagers and they're not enlightened is not true. Secondly, those people tend to vote along party or traditional or ethnic lines. So majority of them will simply line up with what they do traditionally. So those who will decide these votes are likely the 9 million extra new votes. And those are young voters, and they have an agenda and they have a mission. So they will tip this election one way or the other if they turn out. And I think they are angry, they will turn out.
I think a lot of our youths are determined to change the course of things back home for good. My only fear is that they're able to get to their polling stations on the day of election.
Yeah.
That would mean the world in terms of the outcome of the election.
All right, gentlemen, let's move closer to the issue of the election proper. What are your thoughts about the political parties, flag bearers, and the presidential election? Are Nigerians satisfied with the options available from your observations and conversations with your friends and family members in Nigeria?
Yeah, so for someone who just came back recently, I could say I have immediacy. And here's the conversation I hear. We think this person is the best candidate, but we know that they will not win. So therefore, we will vote this line or this line. That was a conversation in January. I don't know if those sentiments are still there because people know. They know who seems to be the better qualified with their current credentials. Are not qualified academically, but qualified in terms of experience, in terms of health status, vigor, in terms of track record of integrity, and so on. And I'm hoping that things are tilting now, that it's becoming sharper and more crystallized. Because when you look at the political parties, they all promise the same thing. There's no ideological difference, really. And when you look at the big political parties that have existed in Nigeria, they are essentially election winning machines. That's all they were. So if I'm in this party, I don't win, I'll jump to the next party that can deliver me power. But there's no ideology, no sense. It's just that I need power, I want power, I'm jumping here to there. The third force that has come, it's really honestly another power delivering organization. It's just that it does have an ideology, but really at the base of it, it's still the same thing. So it boils down to the candidates, therefore.
So it's no more about party ideology, it's about the individual.
Yep.
In fact, all of the three candidates, the leading candidates, have been at one point or the other in the same political party.
Well, I'm glad you said leading because we have more than three.
That's right. So it is like Emmanuel said, there is no ideological basis for the leading political parties in Nigeria. Then it brings us to the level of the candidates. So who amongst these three, or all of the candidates, if you like, is likely to be able to deliver on the promises of Nigeria? What do we want? We want good quality leadership. We want someone who is not obviously corrupt. We want someone who is healthy. We don't need a president that will go into a third country for healthcare for 6 months on assumption of office. You cannot perform that way. So I think the choices are becoming more and more crystallized as all of these candidates run across the length and breadth of Nigeria. People can see who is fit, who is unfit, who is able to answer the questions, who is avoiding the interviews and the debates, because that is how the electorates are supposed to know their candidates. And if you're not making yourself accessible, how are they to know what it is you are able to do?
I get disappointed at the level of lack of ideology in our political parties. Just like Dr. Gye said earlier on, I mean, here we kind of divided into conservatives or liberals. And if I tell you one thing, even in my church, I'm a sides person. And when we go to get collections, the chief warden will say, okay, you take the left, which is liberals, and you take the right, conservatives. You know, we make that joke. But it's a pity that in Nigeria, the kind of political transfer, I don't know how to put it. They just call it meandering. Somebody you see in this political party today, tomorrow he's in another one. Ask him, why did he move? He has no good reason to give you. It's just that that is where I want to be. That's because that's where I could win. That is very bad. But unfortunately, it's not looking like it's going to change. I mean, what with a person telling other politicians that to come over to our party and all your sins will be forgiven, and as if it's a joke. Many of them with corruption cases on their neck. They started crossing over to that party and nobody heard anything in the courts again about that. So I think, like we've been saying, let's hope. Nigerians are hoping that we're going to put it right this time. We don't want somebody that will make the central bank his own purse. We don't want somebody that will make, just like now, somebody is Minister of Petroleum or has been Minister of Petroleum for 8 years. And look at, we have never had it so bad. And I remember in 2012, when this issue of subsidy was being hammered on. And somebody said, what is subsidy? There's no subsidy. And I remember some people calling me here in Ottawa that I should come, let us go and protest at the Parliament Hill. And I said, protest for what? They say, hey, about this fuel subsidy thing now. I said, yes, I want it to be removed. The guy just dropped the phone immediately.
At the last election in Canada, the debates were just so fascinating. It gave a lot of people opportunity to get to meet the candidates, like people who didn't know about them, their ideology or what they plan to do for the country. It was quite interesting to watch. The person I decided to vote for was not the person I initially wanted to vote for, or even the party. After that debate, I changed my opinion because I could see that the other party had more plans for African, Caribbean, and Black people, and that's what I wanted. So, of course, you could tell how the voting pattern went, which is why it is essential to have these debates. And unfortunately, the way things are going, it looks like we may not have debates with all the candidates.
Yeah, I think it's essentially because the average Nigerian politician only thinks of how much money he can pay someone to vote for them. That is the main issue here. That's why a television station would invite a candidate to a debate. They give you a long notice, and then you decide not to turn up. I think the arrogance of the average Nigerian politician, the way that they take the people for granted, total disrespect for the citizens, it stinks to high heavens. A few days ago, I listened to one of the candidates for only 5 minutes, and I knew immediately that this person knew what they were saying. But I haven't seen any of the other candidates talking for that long. So going forward is to say, part of the electoral process is for you to appear. It must be part of the law. If you are contesting for every political party, your candidate must avail themselves of the opportunity for Nigerians to ask them questions in town hall formats and in debate format. It should be part of the law. Nobody should be allowed to take Nigerians for granted.
Look at the debates in the US. Look at debates here. They do it in French and do it in English. How I wish something like that happens in Nigeria. But unfortunately, I tell you, in Nigeria, even if there are those presidential or governorship debates, they'll be giving questions in advance and they'll know what to answer, and they'll answer to what people want to hear, which is not what we want. It's not what we want.
Dr. Gye.
So I'm smiling because I'm going to be controversial here. The politicians know what debates work, okay? And they deliver that debate to the people. So now it's time for Nigerians to decide what debates they want. Do they want the debate of ideas and real information on how they will deliver so that we can now hold them accountable to their promises when they go into office? Or do they want the debate of sentiments, of insults, of subterfuge, of money changing hands? Nigerians have to choose, but there's a debate. Just like we chose one group of debates, then the other. So the politician who knows he has done enough of the debate to get his vote Why will he show up on a arena and go and make a fool of himself and waste time when he can be elsewhere relaxing and doing what he wants to do? People have to decide. In societies where people are sophisticated, more sophisticated in the democratic process, people want to hear the ideas. Okay, you said you're going to improve the economy. How? Show me.
Oh.
Wow. Who? What will you do? What's the idea? Show me the superiority of your ideas. In Nigeria, yes, I'll give you electricity. I'll bring security. I'll stop banditry. I'll do this. How? Apparently, we care for the rallies in stadiums where we insult the other parties and we tell them that they are small boys or they don't know anything or they, that seems to be what we like. This election, vote for the person who has the best ideas and then hold them accountable.
What would you like to see concerning a new Nigeria from the leaders? And when I say leaders, I mean 3 tiers of government, not just the presidency.
I would like a situation where after the elections, our politicians will learn to become sportsmen. And that is the loser accepts loss and life goes on. I want to see a Nigeria where they will walk the talk.
When the current government came into power, and even on their campaign trail, I remember one of them who currently holds a post as a minister, and he's been a minister now for 8 years. He said that electricity will be fixed within 6 months. This is the 8th year. So I'm hoping that indeed there will be a shift, a seismic shift in the political landscape.
I hope post-election and even pre-election, Nigerians will learn to respect themselves and demand respect. And the reason why I say is if Nigerian voters choose X, then it is not about the politician, it is about the choice of the Nigerian voters. You should respect it. Right now, the politicians think the world revolves around them. They're the center of the universe. So if they lose the election, it's because there was some rigging or something. No, it's not. It's because that is the choice of the people. Respect it. We've seen it happen in other places where people concede elections because they say, we are one. We are Nigerians. And the life of every Nigerian is just as important as mine. So we should keep that principle sacrosanct. The flip side is the electorate themselves. You see, in this conversation, the electorates try to cast themselves as helpless victims. They are just, helpless. This thing is happening to them. No, you're not. You are actually active contributors by your inactivity or otherwise, or even complicity, because it is not the leaders that are in NEPA. It is not the leaders that are in NNPC. It's not the leaders that are in the police force. It's not the leaders that are in the day-to-day activities of your office. Do your job right. Demand integrity and honesty. If we look after the whole community and do what is right for the whole community, all of us will be taken care of. That is how the West has gotten itself to this place. The lowest person in the developed economies is well protected. So the society is only as strong as the weakest member of that society.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gye. That's a very good way to end this conversation. We must hold our leaders accountable. That's how democracy will work. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We will keep this conversation going. And to our viewers, thank you for watching.